quote that you said really jumped out to me, and I was like, oh, that's a good starting point. You just told me that you don't view yourself as being on a path. You are the path. You said, I am the path.
Right.
Tell me more.
Well, you and I talked before when we first met, kind of our philosophies and where we kind of like spend our attention when it comes to like stoicism and things like that, and kind of deep thinking, since the first time we talked. And I was thinking the other day, someone said to me about, oh, Jeff, I love the path you're on. Or the implication was that there was this predestined road set ahead of me, and my job was to just go down the road. And I got to thinking, who in their right mind would predestine me to lose half my family and almost take my own life? What insane person would put me on that road? So I don't think I'm on a road. I think I am the road. I am the path. I'm building the path, stone by stone, brick by brick. And some days that stone I pick and I put in the ground almost literally takes my life. It's so heavy. It's so burdened with pain and suffering and, sorrow. And then other days the stone's really light like a feather, like it's full of gratitude and love and empathy and hope and courage. And that is some twisted way that I've kind of presented this whole odyssey I've been on for the last 8 years, Justin, in my life. I just got done speaking to a Rotary Club this morning at 7 a.m. And when I retell the story over and over and over, honestly, there's pieces of it that I glean wisdom from that I didn't catch earlier. So some people would say, well, Jeff, does it get tiring to tell your story all the time? Well, I mean, honestly, yeah, it does. But every time I do, somebody catches something like you just did and asks me to maybe clarify more, and then I learn something as a person. So, I'm 59 years young, so I have a lot to learn. Life has been a very liberating teacher, but it's been very hard on me, very, very humbling teacher as well. But so has it been to everybody watching your show and everyone who follows your initiatives. It ain't fair, but if you could find some place of quiet and stillness, it's worth living. And I had to remind myself that when I went through a lot of my really darkest days.
I'm not gonna lie, preparing for this conversation just a little bit, like I was wondering how do you feel telling the story over and over? And I am gonna ask you to tell it again in hopes that somebody does glean something, or I can catch something we can dive deeper in, so that it's not another remembrance of what happened, but it ends up being enlightening. But I want to go back to one other thing on the path. You mentioned some days they're heavy, some days they're light. How do you help yourself navigate the heavy days?
I think part of it is having realistic expectations, in that I don't consider myself, a rock star or super strong or overly brilliant, but I also am wise enough to know that these days are coming. And it could be in an hour, it could be in 4 hours. Summers are hard for me because the death dates, the anniversary dates, the birth dates, all these things are lumped together like in a 3-month time span. There's I think I counted at one point, there was 7 anniversaries in 60 days. And each one is, heavy. But as you get older, I know, the game, you're supposed to be present and the past is over and the future hasn't happened. But that's great. I love these ideas and theories, but when this hits you hard, like it does me, you have to just embrace it and just sit in it. And I give the example a lot when I talk to people. It's like, you work out a lot, I obviously can tell. Most of the times you probably go into the gym, maybe you're not, but I know a lot of people that work out that they're not super excited, but they know they have to do it. They know they need to get in there. Once they get the blood pumping and everything going, they'll be good. But every single time when they're done, 100% of the time, they've always felt really good. They always said, hey, it was worth fighting through that last set or whatever. Well, I kind of look at grief and suffering and all that in my life as like a mental wellness, mental health workout. I've never cried super hard and felt worse. I've never unloaded how I felt with someone, vulnerability about suicidal ideation back in the day. It felt worse. Every time I put another brick in that road, and I think that's the metaphors and analogies and the stories I tell myself, Justin, because the old story I was telling myself just wasn't productive for me having any type of enjoyable life.
do you see yourself, going back to like strength and going back to the boulders heavy? Have you learned that in those moments when it's the heavy rock, it's easier and better for you to either lean on others to support, like more people can lift it, or lean on some like tools? Like I think about like, okay, I've got this heavy rock I need to lift. No one else is around, but I can find a board and a rock and I can create a little wedge and that'll help me. Like, or do you just try to go full at it yourself?
Wow, that's a very good question. I know the benefits and the utility of conversation, but as a man that grew up in a time, 70s and 80s, with three brothers and a very, athletic family, we just figured it out. You just went out in the woods and you build a tree fort for 4 hours by yourself or whatever. You just figured it out. So I have that part of me in me. When I'm in my darkest moments, I hate to even say this, but I don't want to talk to anybody. If you called me and texted me, which has happened many times, I don't answer them. And I know I'm supposed to. I know the book says this. It's just like when you're in that situation, I've got to figure it out on my own. No one's going to come save me. The clouds aren't going to part and Chariot shows up and says, hey, Jeff, here's something to help you. I've got to figure it out on my own. And that's how I stopped drinking alcohol. I just looked in the mirror one day and said, after many, many years of being a full-fledged alcoholic, and just stopped. Just one day, I just realized, and no class is going to do it for me. No book's going to do it for me. No podcast, no rehab. I just need to stop drinking. It's literally that effing simple. And that's how I kind of look at everything else in my life, is that I'm not going to stop grieving. I'm not going to stop suffering. But the emotional weight that I tie onto it, the power that it holds, I've learned to lessen that down over the years. And it's still there. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's daily. And there's, but the weight of the pain and the suffering is just not like it used to be. But you live long enough, man. I mean, things happen. They just weren't supposed to happen in the order. The deaths weren't supposed to really happen in the order that you normally see. That's the only difference in my situation, is just the order of everything versus just deaths in normal. You get to be 59. I mean, you're going to lose people you care about, family members, best friends, business partners, ex-athletes, whatever. When it's the youngest, the younger ones first, that gets really difficult to kind of understand but again, based on that theory that I don't really believe things happen for a reason either. I don't believe there was a reason my son died from fentanyl. I don't believe that. I believe, how he did, how this happened, but how can there be a reason why this happened? And if there is no reason, well, then I got to find one, man. I have to fabricate one. I have to come up with a reason to give my life meaning and purpose. Because if it's not going to reveal itself, if reason is just going to show up and say, I'm secular, so I'm not going to have a deity come into my life and say, hey, Jeff, I took your son. I want you to worship me, but in return, I'll, send you to heaven. I'm like, that has never happened to me. I'm not saying that's not what happened, but it just hasn't happened to me. So I'm like, I don't want to sit around and wait for somebody to come tell me why half my family's dead. And so again, I'm just going to go find my own reasons. And that's how I've done things most of my life, is very, and sometimes it's got me in trouble. I'm pretty spontaneous and I'm pretty pragmatic. But yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'm not sure if I really answered it super well, but that's a good deep question there.
I wasn't looking for a specific answer. You've mentioned some of the things we're going to talk about in your story. So we're going to get to your story in a second, because by now we're 10 minutes in. I'm sure people are like, well, what, like we have an idea of some of the stuff. So we'll get there for a second. But before we go, I want to point out something I think is really important with what you just said. And that in the darkest moments, you don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
The books say that that's not what you're supposed to do. And what I want to come back to is that these books and these resources, while they are valuable and there may be some things that are in there are true, like I don't believe there are any absolutes. And what I think is important is, and this is what I want people watching and listening to consider, is you have found what works for you. And while it may not be textbook perfect, that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong.
Right.
You've learned how to, in those darkest moments, still be okay yourself. I know you've had moments where you've thought things that thankfully you didn't do, but you know that, like, okay, I know that I'm not supposed to do this by myself, but I have to. and I know I can get through it. I have before and I will again. And that's what works for you. And if you try to do these other things, it may actually keep you from making the progress you need to make because it's not what's authentic to you. So I bring it up only because if you don't know what to do in anything in life, like even if you come to my world in finance, like there's textbooks, ways that you're supposed to do things with your money, but textbook is not always right for the individual. And if you can figure out what is right for you, then you create your own path, or you create your own fix for the thing going on. So I just wanted to point out that I think it's good that even though it's not what the textbook would say. So I just wanted to point that out.
That's a good point.
If it's all right with you, let's revisit the story I know you've told a million times, and you can start it where you want to start and incorporate all of the things that have been unfair through your life that have kind of brought you to where you are today.
I'll go back to October 4th of 2016. That's probably a good place to start because that's kind of where my rebirth began. On that particular day, I was 50 years old. And like I said earlier, I'm 59 now. And happily married to the love of my life, Prudence. She was 9 years younger than me. We met. And we married 21 years in 2016. Had 3 boys. Seth was our oldest. He was a basketball player. He was 23. Ian was 15. He was my golfer. He played college golf. And then Roman, the youngest, is 13. He's a wrestler. So very active family. I'm not lying, Justin. We were just the average middle class, white Iowa corn flyover state. Just nice people. Walk people across the street, open doors for him. Just a great place to grow up. And I'd reached 50, and I'm like, man, Jeff, you really did it. You've got the big house, you've got the cars, you travel in the world, you married this stunning woman, you've got these 3 successful boys, and then like life always does, once you start telling yourself, you get overconfident. At least it did in my life. Maybe it doesn't do for everybody, but it comes in and quickly humbles you through cancers, through divorces, through bankruptcies, through car accidents, through, it's just how it works, unfortunately. On that particular morning, our oldest son, Seth, who was 23. And by the way, I was running a wealth management firm since I was 23. We had $800 million of AUM. I had a TV show for 5 years called the Premier Investments of Iowa Financial Show. And I was on radio for 15. We still have the longest running financial show in Cedar Rapids history here. Even though I sold the company, it's still on the air. I couldn't have been any happier in my life, but there was underpinnings of foundational cracks too. I'll explain in a minute. So that particular morning, I got that call that every parent just dreads. And as I said this morning, I became a member of a club I didn't ask to join and one I can't leave. And our oldest son, Seth, age 23, was found dead in a hotel room, a seedy hotel room in Waterloo, Iowa. Needle in his arm, slumped over in his chair, and fentanyl had taken his life. And I never heard of fentanyl. I knew what heroin was, and he wasn't a heroin addict. He just tried heroin, I think, based on the needle marks, maybe 5 to 7 times. Doesn't matter, but I just think there's so many stigmas in this whole process I was on with Seth. And immediately, you can imagine, well, maybe you can, and I hope you never have to. I hope nobody ever has to deal with this, but unfortunately it's happening, every day, multiple times. Losing a child is just like, it's the most horrific thing ever. And, initially my wife and I went into shock. I had to go tell her because I got a call and was told that Seth had died. And I tell you, man, that was the worst moment of my entire life. Other than finding out, obviously, he was dead. It was coming around that bedroom corner. My wife's getting ready to go watch our son golf, and she's wearing the orange and black, and she's got her prairie hat on, and she's on her phone with her best mom friend, and like all moms do. And I'm heading off to go watch my son golf, and I come around the corner, and I'm just shaking. I can't talk, and she instantly just sees the dread in my face, and I just say, "Seth's dead." And I tell you, a lightning bolt hit me. We both fell to the ground, and I wrote about this in my book, but a lot of it I don't remember. And some of it's so seared in my brain, and I'll even in death, I'll never forget. And somehow we got ourselves up. We drove the hour and a half up to Waterloo, and they had the yellow tape around the hotel room, and he was already gone. The coroner had already taken him out, and that's really where this whole thing started for me on that day. And So there's a lot to unpack on that day. And then obviously, you know, the rest of the story, what happens next, very shortly next. And you go from 50 on top of the summit that you all achieve. You know, you have dreams, you have goals, and you feel like you really, sometimes you don't, because a lot of goalposts in life move, and you get to a goal and you just keep moving it. You never get any sense of satisfaction. Well, I was at that goal. I achieved it. And then just, you know, for my ego, that got taken away from me. But in reality, it wasn't about me and my goals. It was about Seth and his life. And it's another transformation that I've realized on my whole journey, how freaking selfish I've been, thinking that, oh, what would the community think when Seth was in prison? You know, geez, I'm running a wealth management firm, or if clients find out, you know, what happens if he... And so it just became such a dismantling of really who I should have been, and turned into just a really big ego play, which now I've learned ways over the last few years to really tame and quiet my ego. But that's a little bit about, you know, half of the story roughly. I remember the day that he died. My dad's a retired doctor, and I just really respect my dad. He's 93 now, and he's just my rock. And I called him up and I told him what happened, obviously, and I was a wreck. And I go, what do I tell the boys, Dad? What do you tell your boys if their older brother's dead? Now, where's the book on that? And he said, Jeff, he goes, I'll give you some guidance, not advice, because I don't have any idea what I would say if one of your brothers would have died to you. But he said, I want you to do this. Tell them the truth and then shut your mouth. Because, you know, they like to talk. And I was going to smooth it over by just talking, telling them how they should feel, how they should do this, what I'm going to do. And I did. I just told them, boys, I got some really bad news. Your brother's dead. And you could hear a pin drop. And suddenly my middle son looked up at me. He was 15. He goes, how'd he die, Dad? Drugs? They knew. And this is exactly what I said. Immediately, spontaneously, I did not want to rehearse it, and it became the foundation of everything that I do. The name of my project, Living Undeterred, came from this. My nonprofit, the book I wrote, the app that we have now, everything kind of came from this. And I stood up, and I remember, Justin, this is all happening like in milliseconds in your brain, but I remember like a week long, like preparation for this moment, like, or a lifetime long, like I call them dad moments, and you have husband moments, and you have son moments where you get, you know, 4 or 5 your whole lifetime, where literally the things that come out of your mouth are going to have to be that impactful to set the tone for the quality of the rest of life of your family or your team or your work or whatever it's going to be. It was, you've had those moments. You have to say not the right thing, but the authentic thing, something from the heart. And I stood up from the couch, cleared my voice. My wife's over to the right. She's absolutely a wreck. And the boys are looking at me like just completely lost. Now, what do we do, Dad? You're the captain of the ship. What are we going to do? And I said, boys, we have one of 2 roads to go down. We have one road of anger, despair, and hatred, and we'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of love, hope, and inspiration. And this can be the single greatest moment in our lives and making a difference in the lives of others. I ask you to join me. So that's how I presented to the boys. I said, I ask you to join me. Like, I'm going to show you, not today, but I'm going to show you what to do. And I'll stop there for a second, and we can tie up any loose ends, but because there's an interesting thing that happened the next 14 months. And then we get into where I'm at today. And the challenges that I've had and stuff. That's how I wanted to present it to the boys. Is I wanted to say, we have a choice, guys. We have this road and that road. I'm going to go on this one. Come with me. So it could be an autonomous decision on their end. Sometimes I'm not forcing them to behave a certain way. That was the plan, you know.
That's the part of the story that stood out. And for listeners, like the way that Jeff just shared that story with us is the exact story he told me the first time we met. And I will always remember the 2 roads, the descriptions of the 2 roads, and the I asked you to join me. Like I remember those stand out to me because obviously the 2 roads are kind of easy to see, but I did know, and I don't know if you went into it when we talked about why you said join me. I just remember you asking them to join and realizing that it's, you taking a leadership role, but to your point, not forcing it on them. So that if they make the decision to go the harder route, because I would say that the path you all chose to go down, the road you chose to go down, is harder than going down the one of anger and
Oh yeah.
like that's no one
That's
would
the
blame
easy road.
if
Yeah.
that was the path you went down. No one would blame you. It'd be easy to justify that. But if they chose to go the harder route, knowing it's going to be harder, they're going to stay on it because they made that choice themselves. Take away the fact that your dad, like in parenting, you tell your kids they're not going to do it because mom and dad told you. Someone else tells you to do it, they'll go ahead and do
Right,
it.
absolutely.
Like that, you had that part of it too, but then just the heaviness of the event. So my only question I want to ask about like tying up was, how did you find the courage to go the harder path?
Well, here's the rest of the story. The first 14 months, I took the opposite of what I told the boys to do. So I called my business partner out, Brock Renner. I was 60% owner of the company. He was 40. And I said, Brock, I need to take some time off. I'm not in a good place. I need to help my wife, Prudence, and the two boys. So I stayed home. My wife didn't work at the time, so she was staying home too. So what people don't know, they know now because I share it, is my wife and I stayed home for 14 months and we got drunker every day. So I've been an alcoholic my whole life. So all the way since high school. I'd say I was a 5-6 day a week, high functioning alcoholic. So I would never drink till after 5 or 6 o'clock at night. I would have a couple beers, have a bottle of wine, never get behind the wheel. I just did it at home, just very naively, innocently in my mind. But like most things in life, nothing ever becomes a problem until it does. And so in my case, we stayed home and drank and drank and drank. And I felt a sense of hypocrisy, of imposter syndrome, that here I am. I wrote a book during this time. I started my podcast during this time. I started my nonprofit. I was asked to keynote all over the country. And here I am, unable to work, but I can be an advocate, which is actually kind of therapeutic for me. Giving back to people helped me a lot. But I was drinking heavily. And I'll never forget the moment on December 24th of 17, so about a year and a half after Seth died. So I'd have been, almost 52. And we had a condo in Florida that we no longer since own. And I was there with my wife and our two boys. And I remember it was like midnight and I'm probably drunk. I got a glass of wine or something watching TV. And my wife comes walking by me. Now, let me tell you, my wife, stunning. She was 9 years younger than me. She's beautiful. And I looked at her and I thought, oh my gosh, she looks 9 years older than me. Just in a matter of a year and a half. Like all that youth and vibrant personality and just love of life. I just saw this, I'll just be blunt with you, this miserable, angry, old lady that wasn't my wife anymore walk right by me. And that's another moment that hit me like a lightning bolt. So I went in the bathroom, and again, I looked at the one thing that you can't lie to, and that's the mirror. And I stared at it and I'm like, what the F are you doing, dude? You couldn't save your son. You were a drunk when he was struggling, and now you're losing your wife. And it just clicked on me. I'm done. So after, I've since 18 to 52, never one time tried to stop because I like drinking too much. I just literally looked in the mirror and stopped. And from that moment, I've never had a thought of alcohol. I've never been tempted. It's the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. I don't even call myself sober because that gives the implication that I'm in some fight, like some mythical demons out there trying to, no, I just don't drink. It's just like, and if I did, which I don't think I will, I wouldn't beat myself up. I would just say I had a drink, big deal. That's that pragmatism that has served me well at times. Other times it's not. But I'll finish this story and then we can move on. But I thought that honestly, symbolically, this would be a way for me to support my wife. That's the reason I was going to quit, believe it or not. It really wasn't because I didn't even know at that point I was still an alcoholic, which is crazy now. Drink that many years and you're in such denial and you play such games that, it's just a couple beers. Alcoholics always make up these excuses. It's not whiskey, it's like, and so I thought quitting would would help Prudence, and it didn't. And then on June 29th of 2021, at the age of 46, she died from, her death certificate says alcoholism or whatever it says on it, alcohol, whatever. But the reality was it was, trauma, grief, depression, anxiety. And she also had 12 prescription bottles that she had with her when she died. So again, kind of thought the system let her down a little bit because my son was on Adderall early. And I'm like, what am I missing here? I've got two people I care about. Both are really struggling. Both need help. And when I put them both into the system, I walked out with labels and pills. That's what I walked out with. And I'm like, they're both dead. I'm like, sure, I could have been a better husband. I could have been a better dad. But maybe the system could have been better too. Maybe instead of saying, I blame Adderall, now I don't blame anybody now because there's no blame. We're all going to die eventually. There's no blame. I mean, you are, so am I. Everyone's going to die. So it's just the order and the timing of everything to me was kind of odd. And I really think the system could have done them better justice by providing other options prior to prescribing meds. And that's my belief. I could be completely inaccurate with that assessment, but I'm going off the evidence that was presented to me over that 8-year time frame. So from 50 to 55, I lost half my family to things that were preventable and quite predictable too. So that's another chapter where my life took a very big detour, I guess, in a way.
I don't think we need to examine those chapters anymore. I mean, I think everybody listening can feel the pain, can put themselves in your shoes, even though that's not the same. Like, I don't think we need to dive into any further of that part. But I do have a question on continuing it. So obviously you were here today. We were having this conversation. You mentioned the app and some other things you're doing. After you lost Prudence, at what point did you decide, I'm going to do something to fix the system that may or may not have failed my family, the system that I don't think helped my family? Because that was a part. I know Brighton, which we're going to get to in a second. I know from our conversations, I know those things led to it. But the times we've talked, I don't think I've ever heard you mention the system and the letdown that you felt there. So at what point did you decide, I'm going to make this? Well, actually, I'll let you decide I'll let you say how it came in. I'll back up. At what point did you decide you were going to do something about it?
Well, you get pushed by the bully enough in life, you fight back, right? So to kind of finish the conversation, but then a quick segue into what I want to talk about the system that we've witnessed here and where I see the systemic problems in society today. 3 months after my wife died, my mom died. So that Christmas, I sat in my closet with a gun to my head. So this is what, Christmas of 2021, not too long ago. And that whole Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I just did the whole, death has to be better. It can't be worse because I'm living death right now. It can't be worse. I mean, there's no way being on the other side, I'm already in hell. This is what I'm telling myself. So whether there is a hell or not, it didn't really bother me because I'm already in it. It's like, who are you going to take next? Like, I kept saying, who are you going to take next? One of my sons? Or are you going to take my brother? It's like, so I didn't, obviously. I didn't. But that was the first brush I had with what's called suicidal ideation, which is in my advocacy now is something I freely share now. That as a man that shows strength and people think I'm, very resilient, which I apparently am. I have had those bouts before, and I'm still here. I show up. I'm batting 1,000. So I think the story there is so can you, so can anybody. You don't have to have the depths of pain I've had. You could have it worse. You could have your only child die. I still have 2 of my 3 left. So my observation came when I sat back that weekend when I somehow navigated through it. A lot of it has to do with Brighton. When Seth died, his daughter was born 3 weeks later. So I have an 8-year-old granddaughter. Her name was Brighton. But a lot of it had to do is I was thinking about the system, about her, this young child coming up into the system, and she's got it. Her dad's dead, and her grandma's dead. Her mom's a meth addict. We don't know where mom is even to this day. She doesn't even call her mom. When she has seen her, she calls her by her first name. And I'm like, she's a child. My dad's still alive. My mom just died a little while ago. And it's like, she'll never have the worst fight with her dad. Think about that. You'll never have the worst moment with your dad. if you're Brighton, because she never knew her dad. She never technically knows her, doesn't know her mom either. And I thought there's something wrong. So I'm going to take Seth's life and I'm going to reverse engineer it. I'm going to go back. And the book really helped me. I was going back thinking, okay, all these stories, all these situations. And I went all the way back to middle school. And I was digging through a file of his, and I kept seeing these parent-teacher report cards, which I'd completely forgot about. They were stuck in a file. And in those files was tons of data about the teachers being critical about Seth. Like, he's disruptive, he's not paying attention, he's late to class, things like that. And he was our oldest son, so I didn't have anyone to really compare it with other than my childhood, which I never made honor roll. I mean, I was not a good student. I have attention deficit. My mind was always thinking of things. And I thought, well, okay, but these teachers seems like they're being more critical of Seth than they are telling him, hey, this can be configured in a positive way. Your energy you have could actually be a superpower. No one ever told him that. And so I'm looking at all these reports, and I thought, okay, so what did I do with this data from these teachers? Well, I went to the doctor. I would never have went, ever, had I not been told that Seth had all these problems. And I did. And I went, and in a matter of just a few meetings, walked out with this attention deficit label. Here's a pill. And if you take this pill, it'll exorcise your demons. And the pill is called Adderall. And that is the birth of, in my mind, where a lot of this started. Or at least poured gas on the fire instead of water. And then I just started looking at my wife. I did the same thing. Our son dies, and, she gets all these antidepressants, all these other, and all these multiple pills. And she was somehow, I don't know if she was doctor shopping or somehow she was getting multiple pills from different doctors. I don't even know if you could do that now. Or maybe she was, I have no idea, honestly. But I started thinking, okay, both times when they needed really help, they were given a Band-Aid to stop a symptom. Not to cure anything. And even though I don't think suffering's curable, but it's certainly manageable. And just masking it with meds, and then my wife drinking on top of it, vodka and a handful of pills, she didn't have a chance. So those were my moments. That the closet, that spot in my closet, which I walk by every morning, Justin, I look at it and I have a respect for it. I really do. I have some odd respect that area was where so much of my work happened. But see, I wasn't drunk. I wasn't medicated. I sat in my closet for 3 days with a gun. I'm not recommending that's what you do. But for Jeff Johnston, that's what I needed to do to get that close to the end of and look into the abyss. Most people, I would suggest, don't go that far. It's not a friendly path to be on. But that was what I chose for myself at that moment. That I said, okay, if we're going to do this, and I'm talking like to death, we're going to do this, death, let's dance, man. Let's figure this out. I'm not going to do this every freaking day with you. But let's figure it out. And that's what I did that weekend in the closet. And so then I just got the spark of, okay, I'm going to build this app. And what's the app going to do? Blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm not trying to put out the medical profession. I mean, like fentanyl, for example, took my son, right? My dad had a stomach aneurysm 3 years ago. First thing I see in the hospital, guess what's pumped into his system? So it's not fentanyl's fault. I mean, it saved my dad. So there is me trying to blame a drug, and the drug dealer wasn't trying to kill my son. He was probably trying to feed his family. I have no idea. I'm not saying this stuff is okay, but when you release the hate from your heart, you can allow so many things into your life that are already around you, but you can't see them because you're so close. And I was that close guy for most of my life. And having my family taken away from me in that manner in a time when I was, battling my own demons with alcohol, it somehow was necessary for me to get here to be on your podcast. I don't know how else to spin it. I mean, or I can sit around and just torture myself and end up joining him.
I had a thought when you mentioned it wasn't the drug dealer who wanted to kill your son. Who knows? Maybe he was trying to feed his family. That is, to me, it sounds like you coming from a place of empathy for somebody who was doing something wrong. And I can't imagine being in a situation and having empathy for somebody who I could point the finger at. But I also think that you probably can't get to a place of healing, or I don't know if you ever fully heal, but more healing or moving towards healing without having that empathy to release that person. Because now I've never been through this experience. So this is just me hypothesizing from what I've observed people, but that as long as you're holding on to the hate for the drug dealer or the hate for fentanyl, you're never going to get closer to a place of peace, or at least move towards it. Like, I don't think you're going to get better because you're holding on to that anger. And to come with empathy and say, he didn't mean to do this. He may have been trying to provide for his family in the only way that his circumstances allowed. And yes, it's not right and it's wrong, but I release that blame of him. I've got to imagine once you let go of the blame, now you can actually start to move towards healing. And I just think that takes a really strong person to be able to do that.
It's learned empathy, because I didn't feel that way at first. My first inclination was to go out and find who did it and be like Rambo, and execute him. Literally, that's what I'm thinking. But look at me, I'm not going to do that. So then I got into advocacy kind of naively, like, maybe I'll just put all my energy into helping people. And when I started doing that, when I had my darkest moments, people would reach out to me unknowingly. It still happens today when I have tough days. I'll get texts. I mean, I think every day, multiple times in a day, I get texts or emails or comments from people that say that I had an impact on their life. So I'll give you an example today. So at Rotary, I was speaking at my Rotary Club this morning, and a gentleman came up. I dropped out of the club for a couple of years after all this stuff, and then they got me back into it. Today was my induction, and then they had me speak for like 25 minutes. I kid you not, a guy came up to me afterwards. His name's Sam, and he goes, "Hey, Jeff," he's a big board member of the club there, and he said, "I just want to tell you something." He goes, "You spoke to our Rotary 2 years ago when you were promoting your book, and I got your book because I was an alcoholic at that time." He goes, "Matter of fact, I think that morning I was either hungover or drunk or drinking that morning. It was a 7 a.m. meeting." And he goes, "I took your book and I put it in the back of my truck, kept telling myself, I'm going to read it, I'm going to read it, I'm going to read it." And he goes, "I've never read it, but I've never drank since I bought your book." And I'm sitting there after my speech, people would come up to me. There's a line of few people wanting to talk to me about things. And that was profound, because there was a day I had no idea my talk at Rotary a couple of years ago was going to have that impact on a young man sitting there, one person in the audience of 60 people. And I didn't know until 2 years later. So when I tell the story, and I know there's people out there that just aren't able to let me know that I'm helping them in any way. And that is, dude, that fills my tank up. Yeah, that one thing today, I could get bad news today on an investor could back out or a deal could fall through, but just that one moment of just full of empathy and gratitude, that is beautiful. And that is what I'm trying to capture, is somebody coming up and saying, "Hey, Justin, I watched your podcast or read your book. I went to one of your events and I was really in a hard place, and thank you." It doesn't do anything financially to you, but it certainly does something. It makes you, as Almani says to me, he says, "Jeff, you may not be a billionaire, but I think you're a spiritual billionaire." And that always resonates with me about how we equate wealth today. And even on the app, one of our tenets is wealth. And it's not about having more cryptocurrency or making more. It's, what's the relationship do you have with money? Is it qualitative? Like, do you have a healthy one? Or is it quantitative, unhealthy, based on how much it is? So a lot of my pivot from financial advisory into mental wellness is trying to find some common ground. And in investments, you have like stocks, bonds, and real estate. It's like, what's the human asset classes? What should you be investing in, Justin, in human asset classes for your human portfolio? And it's health, wealth, and purpose. Those are your three asset classes. And inside of health, you got meditation, like growth stocks, and you got mid cap, like breath work. And so there's a lot of parallels there between building a personal mental wellness portfolio, which is what we do with our app, versus what I did for 32 years.
I love that. And one of the things I had written down was mental wellness. Mm-hmm. You hear people talk about mental health.
Yeah.
And but to me, mental wellness it's intentionally being used. So tell me, why mental wellness?
We need to normalize, not pathologize. And we're even moving away from mental wellness. We're going to go into human flourishing. That's going to be our new term. Because when I was in high school and junior high, you were mental. So why do we start off this whole dialogue about the human experience, and we start off the word mental? I mean, so much of your experience isn't just in your head. I mean, your heart. When you say mental, what do you think? You think your brain, you think your mind. You don't think your heart. So I think in your soul, if there is a soul, or your gut, that's not mental. When I say mental, no one thinks of their gut, but how much happens, that as a person that exercises and in fitness, your gut is huge. It's massive. And so for me, it's like moving away from mental health. Mental wellness is what we do now, but we're trying to create this human flourishing concept. I already forgot your question.
Why'd you choose mental wellness? It doesn't matter because we're moving away from it. I do have a comment though. Like words matter. Yeah. And words carry a certain energy with them. So this gets into the spiritual realm, but like we are not, so many of us live in our heads. We are not our minds. Right. And so like to your point, like starting with mental, but the first thing I thought of was when you said like when you were growing up and you were mental, like when I was growing up, if someone called you mental, that wasn't a positive thing. No, that was a negative thing. Yeah. But so to me, human flourishing, like that is all positive energy. Yeah. And words that carry that type of energy, I think are only going to attract positive outcomes. I love the human flourishing.
Yeah. And it's like, even, I remember I was doing a pitch a couple of years ago in Chicago. I think maybe I told you the story. VCs, venture capital people can be fairly arrogant sometimes. My experience has been mostly favorable, but I meet some that, they think the money they're doling out is their personal money when it's really somebody else's, but it gives them a lot of power. And I remember some guy was asking me, he knew we were early. I mean, we're pre-seed, pre-revenue, 6 months out the gate. We're not going to have a lot of customers, right? We just built an MVP. We just launched. I mean, and he asked me like, well, how many users do you have or something, kind of in a way that I took a little bit of offense to it. So my answer was 0. I said, we don't have any users. And I could just kind of hear a pin drop. And I said, yeah, but we got 1,500 thrivers. And he said, what do you mean? I said, we don't call them users in our ecosystem because my son was a drug user. My wife was an alcohol user. I detest that word. We don't have users. No one's using the Brightn app. They're experiencing it. And it was like a moment where I kind of like took control right there. And I felt good. Not that I don't like VCs, but I don't like the way sometimes they ask these ridiculous questions at a stage where, what am I supposed to say? 1 million users and we're 6 months into the bit. I mean, I wouldn't be there pitching to you if I had 1 million users, So anyway, you're right. Especially with Gen Z, which represents a third of the world's population. Look at pronouns, look at the things that I didn't grow up with, he, them, they, or whatever. I respect that. I still struggle with that personally as a 59-year-old, guy who grew up in Iowa that never was introduced to that stuff. But my youngest son came out as gay when he was 17. So I've learned a lot about some of the way that they can get offended. It's been a really good learning experience with Roman because he's very authentic, and we talk quite a bit about stigmas and judgments and the current administration and things like that, but not in a political necessary term, but just in a humanity term. Like, how do we treat other people that don't necessarily subscribe or look like you? And obviously we need to do a better job of that. And it just happened a couple, week or so ago. That certainly came from a place of hate, and there's just too much of it today. So our position is to change human behavior through inspiration, motivation, and stay further away from fear and scarcity. So now I got this 15-year-old that lost their brother, and then, 5 years later loses their mom. And it comes out, as a game event in the middle of that, in a society that being gay is more accepted, but it's not accepted enough, in my opinion. I'm a heterosexual male, but it's been quite the humbling experience to have that. And then when I'm in conversations with people, they don't know I have a gay son, and I kind of let them talk about their thoughts on all these things. And then sometimes I tell them, sometimes I don't. I only tell them if I think it's going to add value to the conversation, not to be confrontational. But it's interesting to hear people's opinions on things and then you let them know you have a gay child, and all of a sudden they kind of change. It's like, why? If you want to be authentic, you have a defensible position. Let's hear it. Let's talk about it. We don't have to go shoot people. You have a right to be offended. You have a right to be wrong. You don't have a right to die for that. There's no reason to die for that. And so that's where this whole thing for me has been quite the educational, even like I said, learning about fentanyl, learning about addiction, substance abuse, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, which I never had before Seth died. All these things have been really good life lessons for me. And you know what? Like I keep telling people, I'm still here. So, that says a lot. I got to prepare myself and so do you. You're always one phone call away. I heard Sam Harris say that when I was reading one of his books. You're always one phone call away. You're always one phone. I keep telling myself when I talk to my dad and I hang up the phone, I always tell him I love him. I never used to tell another man or my dad or my brothers that I love them. Now we all say it together. My three brothers all say it. Love you, Jeff. Love you, Scott. Love you, Dan. Never said that. Never said that. I love you. It's like, I don't know why it's so hard for men to say that to another man. Why not? I know why, but love is just a whole different meaning in my life now. And, would I like to have Seth and Prudence back and be 190 pounds overweight and be an alcoholic? If that's what it took to get him back, I would go back to that easily. But I don't have that opportunity. I don't have that option, but I have the opportunity to make my life better, not bitter. It's kind of a play on, I like that term, better, not bitter. But, I need to make sure, Justin, I allow myself when the bitterness comes to not really fight it. But I don't have to enjoy it. I don't have to like it. But I need to embrace it. I need to, as I say, sit in it. And so far, I've dodged, literally and metaphorically a lot of bullets, and I'm proud of myself on one aspect that I've been able to make some major pivots in my life and I'm grateful I don't have stage 4 cancer. I'm grateful I'm not, in a car accident, in a coma. That so far I think I'm fairly healthy. But again, you got to be prepared for whatever life throws at you and not just only accept the good things. Because you know what loss aversion is in investing. It's the same thing with mental health. You can't put more weight on negative things and then discount the positive things. And I think we run through life and you have one or two bad things happen and then it takes your whole day. And then during that day, you had so many great things happen, but your heart wasn't open to it. So you forgot to actually experience it because you were so focused on the negative things. And that's what people do with their money. Yeah.
That's a great comparison. It's true.
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes the things that we miss out on the great it's not even like necessarily a great experience. Like it could be something as little as just like a beautiful sunset. Like it sounds corny, simple. But like I find myself sometimes just being in awe or at a sunrise. And like, that doesn't sound like it would be much, but if I was living in something that happened earlier in the day, I missed that beautiful reminder of how precious things are. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, because I was living in this thing that happened in the past, I missed this opportunity to change my life. Like, yeah, maybe you do. Or also maybe you just miss a beautiful sunset that just makes you feel really good and at peace.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about the app. We talked about it. I want to give you an opportunity to like share more about the app because, part of the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast was to put this in front of more people. You've built a really cool tool to help people navigate human flourishing. We'll move to that now. So tell me more about the app, how it works. And I just also want to be fully transparent. The day I met Jeff, I also asked, can I invest in Brighton? So like, I'm a very proud investor in the company. I want to share that with people because I don't want it to be like, oh, the only reason he had Jeff on was for the app. No, I'm not that big of an investor. And truthfully, And truthfully, part of my authentic life is I want to invest in people that I believe in and that I care about and love. And yes, I think the app is awesome, but like my investment really was more in Jeff.
Yeah.
He's got this awesome thing I believe in. I believe that this business will succeed, but I want to invest in Jeff and help him be able to do the thing he feels called to do. So I did want to be transparent in that, but and also express my pride of being an investor in the company as well. So tell people about the app.
We're honored to have, because I didn't know you prior, so it's pretty cool that you had enough confidence in us. So I think if you think about the quote that Desmond Tutu said, and maybe you've heard it, maybe I've said it, but it's a one that I've heard prior, but I didn't really attribute much meaning to it, is he said, there comes a point where we need to stop pulling people out of the river and move further upstream and find out why they're falling in the first place. And I came across that when I was kind of figuring out what my next step was after I did the tour around the United States in the RV. And I thought, yeah, that's maybe the road to the niche that Brighton needs to be, the app needs to be, is it prevention and pre-treatment. Because I was looking at the competition, there was like 20,000 apps out there, and most of them were telehealth or teletherapy. In other words, the app was designed to send you or introduce you to somebody to get treatment, to put out an existing fire. And I'm like, 1 in 5 Americans are in crisis mode. 1 in 5 Americans need treatment. 4 in 5 don't. Well, where's the attention to the 4 and 5 that are ultimately going to be the 1 in 5? So I thought, I want to be preventative. And that was the first lane we picked. And then obviously my co-founder and CTO, Carson Goodale, is unbelievably genius level when it comes to AI and tech and building apps. And he's 31. He was a co-founder or a founder of a startup in Chicago called Fan Food. It was a mobile digital food ordering app. And then what happened in 2020? COVID. That business model got murdered. So he exited, came back to Cedar Rapids, but got a wealth of experience of how to do a startup, and it's still around. It didn't fold up, but he learned a lot. So he joined me when we first launched, and he had the vision of AI before anyone was using AI in my circle. We had Google, we had things like that, but chat and all that, Claude, I didn't know anything, but he started us on the AI road right out of the bat. So we had a really good. At the time, we didn't understand how much of a competitive advantage it was going to be, because if you're 2 or 3 years down the road building the guts of an app and the infrastructure and the coding and everything, and now you're going to just inject AI, it's hard to do. It's very expensive and it's very timely to do. So doing it from scratch is quick, but a lot of apps that I was competing with coming to market at the same time, they didn't embrace AI, and we did. And so that's been a big competitive advantage. So the app is kind of predicated on this idea that through very easy onboarding, very simple onboarding, we identify something called the Brighton zone. And it's a pyramid with health, wealth, and purpose. And through your 9-question onboarding, which is all helped designed by neuroscientists and some CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, we can tell you where your weaknesses and your deficiencies are in those 3 areas. And then we have 500 videos in our library now. Most of those are done in-house at our studio, where the AI will recommend, based on your deficiencies, certain things that you should be learning about. And then once you're in the Explore tab, it's like a library of mental wellness. And this is where I think we've really built something that's in getting people engaged, because our metrics are really high. I mean, our 30-day retention is almost 20%. Our engagement numbers are high. And what I think the reason is because the way we've set it up, where once you're in the system, it's very self-assessing. In other words, you really are the driver. It's not like someone says, here, do this, you have to do this, like homework, or some doctor says, take this pill or something. You're the driver. And there's a lot of autonomous learning, I like to call it, where you basically can, on your own terms, you can learn about these topics. But the AI nudges, it does the right thing. And then we've got conversational companions. So we've got the ability to actually have a companion. Now, my companion is called Opus, and that's the name of my cat. It was my favorite wine, Opus One. some people put the name of somebody else or whatever, but the idea was that by voice activating a companion, that in your darkest moments, even though you know it's AI, even though you probably should talk to a human, even though, all these things you should do probably first, we think this is a great bridge or tether for those moments. You're in between sessions. It's Tuesday at 2 a.m. and your parents are asleep. It's Sunday and your school counselor is not at work. Mental health doesn't just show up at convenient times when you need to have help. It shows up actually at the inconvenient times. And I think our app fills that void. Very low. It's 20 cents a day on our B2C subscription. But our businesses that are buying the licensing with us, we're able to offer it free, for thousands and thousands and ultimately millions of people through health insurance reimbursements. So it can be eligible for health insurance, but there's some hoops we have to jump through. So that's a little background about the app. And again, the asset classes are health, wealth, and purpose. But I think probably the most part that I use personally is the AI mood tracking and journaling. So I do about 6 entries a day. Some are like 10 seconds, others are 10 minutes. But I do some mood check-ins during the day, and then I do my journaling. So I grew up journaling in a notepad like this, and then I'd stick it in a drawer and more likely never see it again. And now with AI, not only can I handwrite, so I handwrite a lot of my journals, I can scan it on the app. We're going to be able to scan your notes and put it right into the app. Because some people, some people just like to handwrite still, but the new generation, everything's, digital. So, and the cool thing about the AI is the large language model can start gleaning content and data you put in 2 months ago. And can say, hey, Justin, I noticed your mood. You've got 3 days in a row. I noticed last time this happened, you said in your journal entries that this happened. And AI is brilliant at finding patterns. That's one of the great things about AI is it can find patterns. And when you're feeding it in our end-to-end encryption, server that's protected, private server, you've got the trust and confidence that your data and your confidential information isn't going to be told to anybody unless you allow it to. So again, was this what I envisioned when I first started the app? No. But is this what we've evolved to because the market and the demand and you pivot in business or in startups, I like to say. I still don't think Brighton's a business. This is so weird. I mean, we are a for-profit, but it's like, I just think it's, in a way, it's like a nonprofit that I get to have as a business because I don't really feel like, it doesn't feel like a business to me because I'm not focused on profits and money and all that. I'm focused on passion and purpose. So it's weird, even when I talk to people about the business model, I'm like, it's almost uncomfortable in a way to say that I have a business model. I don't feel guilty because the more money that I can make, the more I can give back to helping other people. And I've put a lot of my liquid net worth at this stage, was my commitment. I told myself when I started this that it was either going to help millions of people or it was going to be the last thing I ever did. There was no middle. There was no middle. It was either going to be yes or no. Not a healthy way to probably do it, but that's how my brain works.
I think you unlocked another podcast episode about the passion and purpose, and then also kind of some of the tie into like the financial aspect. One thing I wanted to share though, when we first met, passion and purpose, you had some phrase that you said, and I was like, Jeff, I have a T-shirt that I made years ago for RLS Wealth, and it says, "Passion becomes purpose with a plan."
I know.
And it was like very similar to the thing that
mine is
you
purpose becomes passion when it gets personal.
Yeah.
Purpose becomes passion personal. Yep.
What I think is really cool about the business and something that you just said, and this would kind of be a good maybe way to transition the end of this convo, and we can pick it up another time, is that, one of the reasons I was so excited to like become a team member, if you will, of Brightn is the fact that it is a business, but it is coming from a place that is transcending business. It's coming from your heart. Like we can call this a passion project, but you were talking about there's so much hate in the world. To me, this is a business of love. It's a lot of hard work. Yes, it's a business. Yes, there's money to be made. And then you go turn around and the money you make, it allows you to help more people. That was the money conversation, is that, I used to have a money script that held me back, that I was afraid to make more money because it's greedy. Well, no, I want to make more money to go help more people. So you have this business that is obviously very personal to you. It's coming from the heart. You know, we tie passion to it, but it's going to do a lot of good because it's coming from a good place. And yeah, you could maybe make this a nonprofit, but let's make it a profitable business so then we can turn around and use that money to go do more good things. I just think I see no way that this is the last thing that you do because of the space that you're coming from. I don't think just because you start a business for capitalistic reasons that means you're a bad business person. But when you start something that is based on impact from the heart, like success is relative, but this is going to have the impact and it won't be the last thing that you do because of where it's coming from. So I think that's really cool. And obviously I'll have links to the app and everything so people can go find it. I do have one final question on the app, just thinking about things that we're seeing today. And, you know, we're starting to hear stories. And I don't know how you're going to answer this. I think I know the answer, and I think it will be a benefit of the app versus people using ChatGPT as their therapist. So they're asking questions, and then now we're seeing situations where ChatGPT is actually leading people towards harming themselves. Does the app have something that would keep somebody from going or alerting somebody to help this person so that it doesn't become, you know, a digital Dr. Kevorkian almost?
Yeah, you already answered your own question because here's the analogy I give you. We get this asked all the time, and even the concept of hallucination, which I can share with you what that means in AI world. Yeah, so if you think of you own a pit bull, I own a pit bull. Okay, same breed, everything, same family, whatever. I can't remember the term now for animals, but and so you got one pit bull that is left outside on a chain with a collar and running up and down and barking at people and fed a chunk of food once a day. You know, very rough life. You have another pit bull that's taken care of, brought in the house when it's cold, fed, loved, nurtured, got to play with kids, loving animal. Okay. They're both the same animal, DNA-wise. One was trained better than the other. And that's how I look at Brighton versus AI outside. So our AI, that trained pit bull, has guardrails. So we have certain roads it's blocked from going down because we trained it that way. It has protocols. If you're self-harm, if you're depressed, if you're struggling with drug use, whatever, we have a 3-part protocol that will go down certain like a decision tree. And any city that you're in any state in the United States, you put in your city, either voice it out. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, or I'm in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We'll give you resources within 5 seconds, 5 or 6 local resources along with the national resources. So, that was really important for us. And your distinction to me is a reason why, that's why I said you answered your own question, is why using the AI in the context of the confines of an app for the time being seems to be a lot more in control of your own destiny. When I'm putting out the same information on chat, and God forbid the content people putting out there, they have no idea how it's trained, good and bad, where the content's going, where the information is being stored, how it can eventually be used against you for marketing or for whatever they're going to do. You don't know that. And then how many people are putting things on there like, just real personal questions, just really intimate personal questions you're asking chat. You don't know who's on the other side. You have no idea. And at least in the compounds of an app like Brighton, you have an idea who's on the inside. Can it be better on both ends? Yeah, we're always trying to perfect it and get better. But I think that's a really good question. And then also the idea of like hallucination. Can the AI unintentionally lie to you? And the answer is it can. And sometimes they're very subtle. It's not like, catastrophic, like life or death situations. But if you lie to it, just like you lie to a human, you're probably not going to get very good data back. It's garbage in, garbage out. So I think a lot of times people are getting lied by AI. They're just confusing the AI and how they're putting the questions in. So again, there's a lot of learning that we can do on both ends. I think a lot of our job is to educate people how these things work. I'm no AI expert, but I know a lot more now than I did 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's a great question.
Well, and I asked it risking that, we don't have anything, but I figured by now you did. Yeah. And I wanted it to be a plug like, okay, if you have children, and we know that kids are struggling these days and everything, like put something like Brighton in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, as a parent, you at least know there's some safeguards and parameters and things that are going to prevent them from, what's happening on the outside world. So I asked it, pretty sure I knew the answer, and I was hoping it would set Brighton up, but there was a risk to it.
Answer because we get asked everywhere we go. So
right, I'm sure. Well, anything exciting that you want to share coming up from Brighton? Any big news? And then if not, I'll kind of like let you get going on your day. And
we're just going to be putting in some streaks, and that'll help with engagement. So like, you're on day 7, day 20. And we're putting in, I'm going to call it a Brighton currency. In other words, the points that you have. So when you're doing your planning, you get points, and that's that dopamine, serotonin hit. But right now the points aren't tangible. I have like 1,300 points in the top left of my homepage. We're going to make it where the points you can have a drop down, and you can plant a tree for 500 points. You can, you could clean, a foot of the coral reefs or something. There's organizations that will do that for you. Take plastics from the ocean, feed the homeless, things like that. So that's that altruistic element of the purpose part of the app, where as you're working on your mental health, your mental wellness, you're getting rewarded, which is great. But now you can actually convert those points to reward somebody else or to help some other element of humanity. So, and I think that being in service of others is like the number one way to give yourself meaning and purpose. So that's something that we're working on.
This app is also elevating the consciousness of the world one by one as all these things going on. That's pretty cool.
It's exciting, yeah.
Any closing thoughts? I'll give you a chance to have any closing thoughts that maybe there's something that a thought popped up or anything you want to end with?
If you're still here today, you survived the worst that life can throw at you. What makes you think you can't survive the next? You're batting 1,000. No matter how hard and miserable things have been, you're still showing up. You're putting the work in. You're deflecting things. So that's great. You made it to today. And just know it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have destructive thoughts. I think sometimes we present this, say you have to like win and fight this and not allow these thoughts in your head. And I'm like, but that creates so much more anxiety. If you just accept it, like, okay, I've got a destructive thought, and just think of it almost like you intercepted your neighbor's thought by accident, and it just passed through your brain, and now it's going to go over to your another neighbor, and you almost just witness it as a wave, and not as something that's inner, but it's more you observed it from the outside passing by you. I've done that in myself. When I feel dread coming on, I'll just say, hey, it's a wave coming from somebody else, and it's just coming through me now, and it's just going to go away. And it's not like being organically like derived from inside of me. I don't know if that's true or not. But if you can trick your brain to get out of whatever rut you're in, just for that moment, because most suicide is a fleeting moment. A friend of mine, Kevin Hines, actually jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. He's a motivational speaker, and he didn't know there was a suicide net under the bridge. And he said the minute his feet left, and he keynotes all over the world, the minute his feet left, he did not want to die. So it makes you think the people that actually did end their life, if they had a second chance, if they had a suicide net, like in my case, I kind of think of Brighton as like a suicide net in a way, saves one person. Who knows? Now this guy's changing lives and he's speaking all over the world. So, suicide is, a permanent solution to a short-term problem or something like that? I don't know. It's like, hey, you know what? Like I said, I'm still here. Tomorrow, am I going to have a tough day? I'll have tough moments. I know I will. It's hard for me to have a day that I don't have hard moments. But I just keep showing up until one day I don't. That's the best I can. That's the best anyone can do.
That's a good note to end on. So obviously everybody knows by now, podcast, go to the show notes. I have everything to Jeff's book, to the Brightn app, how you can follow him, all that type of stuff, so you can keep up to date with what you're doing. And I just want to thank you for, coming and telling the story again. I know it's not an easy story, but I appreciate your vulnerability, your honesty. And I just want to tell you I love you, man. Like we were just talking about earlier. So thanks for coming, and I'm looking forward to our regular conversations, but maybe having you back on as Brighton doing more things and give people updates. So I appreciate you, Jeff.
Be my honor.